Illustrator, as you can imagine, is an illustration program. So in addition to shapes, which are a great way to draw things, you can also actually draw things. So you have the brush tool, which is B, and you have the pencil tool, which is N. As with most tools in Illustrator, double-clicking will bring up an options menu. The fidelity and the smoothness control the type of line that you have. The higher this is, the less detail you have in your line, but the smoother that it will be. The lower that is, the more exact it is to your actual mouse or tablet movement. Fill in new brush strokes is going to give you a fill. Keep this selected means it'll be selected after you are done drawing it. Edit selected paths means that anything that's selected, when you come and draw near it, it's going to redraw that line for you. So you can kind of fiddle with these and play with those. Very similar on the pencil tool. Fidelity, smoothness. Okay, so let's say that you have, why is this useful? Why would you use these instead of the pen tool? If you have artwork like this is a shot that I took with my phone of my sketchbook, and I just paste this in here. And these lines, I could technically come in, let's give ourselves a stroke so we can see what we're doing. I could technically come in and try to follow all of these curves, and it's going to look very rigid. It's going to take me forever, right? Imagine doing this tree. Just take me forever. It didn't take me that long to draw it. So I can actually come in here with a pencil, and I can just trace this line, and then it gives me a line that I can work with. So once I have that line, I can come in here like this, and I can continue. And because I'm going for a hand-drawn look, I don't care that it's not exact, but if I don't like the line that I'm getting, I can always adjust my fidelity and my smoothness. But I have this line now. Now if I want to come in here and I want to do these as closed shapes, I can come in and I want a hand-drawn look, so I'm not terribly concerned about where they are. I do want to give them some rough edges and making some minor adjustments. So I come at the end here, and it's not closed off. So you take your white arrow tool, grab this one, and press Apple J. That will close them off, and then you can come in and make minor adjustments. The other thing that you could do is you can average them, and that's Command Alt J. You can average them, they'll be right on top of each other, and then Apple J closes them off, and then you can mess with that shape just a little bit more. So then you can fill that in, and that can become the backdrop. So if this whole thing, now you can also continue lines, so you can come in here with a line that you've drawn with the pen tool, pencil tool, or brush tool, and you can continue that by clicking on it and coming down here like this, and then finishing that shape off. I should fill that in with a different color. Okay, so you can kind of see how that works. You have a brush palette. There are some preloaded brushes. You can add new brushes. Brush library. Be very careful with these. A lot of them look very bad. There are different types of brushes. We won't get into that too much. But you can click on one of these, bring up your brush tool, and it will use that. Use this one, it uses that line. You can also apply a brush to an existing stroke. Let's get rid of a bunch of this. So if you already have a line, you can apply a brush to that line and it will change. You can change the color of many of these brushes. Also, the stroke is what's being affected by the brush. So let me give you a darker color. Let's just go all the way there. Okay. So increasing the stroke or decreasing the stroke will change the weight or thickness of that brush. Brush and pencil strokes are much like Everything else, they can be affected by anchor points. So the pen tool, the white arrow tool, converter anchor point tool, and the handlebars, you can make adjustments to these lines. You can also adjust the width with the width tool, where you click on the line and you can make it wider or thinner at different points. And these are kind of keyframes, so they will tween in between to the next thing. And they can do that. If you have no brush, so you go back to your brush palette and you click on no brush, then it'll just give you a basic line. And if you increase that stroke, then you can see that those are more effective because they're not altering a brush. Let's say hypothetically that you want to create a tail or a tentacle or something that's wavy that tapers off at the end, maybe a road going off into one-point perspective or something like that. Now you could come in and let's give ourselves a normal stroke. You could come in and you could start down here and you could start your line, try to make it swirl a little bit, and then turn that corner and try to follow this. It becomes rather difficult to get it exactly right, and you can try to do that, and it's not quite right. It's not tapering evenly. One trick is obviously you could draw your line, say with the pencil tool. Give yourself stroke. Grab your width tool in the end here. Okay, and that tapers off really nicely. Or another way that you could do that is you could control your shape a little bit more. So let's say that you know exactly how you want it to end. So I'm going to make my end here be a little bit round. So I'm going to round off that end. I'm going to start over here like that. I'm going to make this even rounder. Just like that. Okay, so let's do that, and let's close off this shape. Fill it in. Now I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to drag it to the brush palette, and it's going to bring up a menu. I'm going to create an art brush. Click OK. Fixed width, that's fine. Stretch to fit stroke length, and you can choose which way it goes. This arrow can switch, right? That means that if I start here and draw this direction, that's what I'm saying, or this would mean I would start here and draw this direction. Okay, and then let's say the key color, we want it to change with whatever color we change it with. We'll ignore the rest of these, press OK. Now, when we draw our brush line, we can be as intricate as we want, and it stretches that shape out. You can even change the color, and it will stretch that shape out across the whole thing. So if we wanted to get, I want to delete everything except this, even more complicated, let's say I wanted, little suckers or something on here. I can put a bunch of these on there like that, grab this, drag it over to my brush, make a new brush, art brush, OK, hue shift, that's the right direction, click OK, delete that, get our brush out, and then we even have little tentacle things. One thing that I'll try to do often is make a specific shape for inking something. So if I'm drawing the outlines of something and I want it to look like an ink pen, I don't always like a lot of the things that they've got here. So what I'll do is I like it to taper off at the ends. So I'll just create kind of the ink line that I want. Make sure it's filled. Okay, and I want this to be a lot thinner like that. Okay, and let's say I want that type of variation. I do the same thing, drag it over, art brush, OK, hue shift, that's the direction I want, good to go. Okay, and then when I grab my brush line, it will do that. Now if I want more variation, it's easy to do. I can come in here like this, grab this. Okay, and it's going to actually change and stretch as it goes. So I've got this little blob in the middle. We'll see how that looks. So I'll go in here like this. Art brush, okay. Hue shift, that's the direction I want, okay. Then when I draw it, I've got to select that. It's got that little blob in the middle. See, and the shorter you go, the more blobby it is. The longer the stroke is, the more it's completely stretched out, but it gives you some variation. So back to this, if I wanted to ink this shape, I would go to a different layer. Go to a different layer. Let's create a new layer on top here. Call it ink. Let's make these more realistic colors. Blue. Okay, so if I wanted to ink the edge of this, I could come in with my brush, grab one of the ones that we just created. Let's do this one. And I can just kind of follow this edge. Now, if that's a little too smooth for me, because I want more variation in my line, bring that fidelity down. Now it should give me that line variation. You can change your brush to be whatever you'd like, but notice how it's tapering off, just like I like it. I might even come down here and give myself some ridges. I can come in here and do my tree that way. Then I can come in and fill those things in. You notice that that can give you kind of a nice look. And if you want any of them to change, you can apply a different brush on an existing stroke. So that is kind of drawing in Illustrator. I would recommend having a Wacom tablet or a Cintiq, Wacom Cintiq. Those are really, really helpful. This is hard to do with a mouse. If you don't like drawing, if that's not your thing and you're trying to learn vector graphics for a different reason, don't worry about it, because there's a lot of people that never use the pencil tool or brush tool. They use the shape and the pathfinder, and they do just fine. A combination of them are great, but if you are strong in your sketches, this is a great way to get your sketches into the computer and digitize them, get them vector so that they can be scalable.